everyone, and welcome in to another episode of Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets and around the NFL. If you're new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. Follow us wherever podcasts are available, and also check us out on social media, wherever the handle at Rich Sports Talk is available. So as part of this channel, I do a lot of mock drafts. And again, especially for the New York Jets, I do a lot of 7-round mock drafts. So just a few quid provisos, a couple quid pro quos before we begin. So I do full 7-rounders, except I do them after free agency. I think you get more of a picture after free agency of where the team could look to fill holes, certain needs. So again, I wait to do the full 7-rounders until after the free agency period. Now, another couple things too, I like to do trades, and this one I'm not going to do any trades. I do think once we get closer to the draft time, there will be more potential trade scenarios, and this is also what I believe the team will do. This is what I believe the Jets will do in terms of what I've seen from Darren Muji, in terms of what I think this staff is going to be looking for. This isn't necessarily what I personally would do, but this is what I truly believe the Jets will be thinking about. And look, this is going to be a very debated draft period for the Jets. There's going to be a lot of different moving parts. There's going to be a lot of debating about who to take it to, who to take at 16, where to trade up, where to trade down. There's a lot to discuss. So this is our first one. Again, this will be the 4 picks in the top 44, picks 2, 16, 33, and 44. My thoughts on what the Jets could do, a couple different scenarios of how they will handle it. And look, this is going to be a lot of fun. Again, give me your thoughts on your players. Give me your thoughts on who you'd like to see. And again, this is what I believe the New York Jets will do in this upcoming draft. And there is definitely a lot. So without further ado, the New York Jets are on the clock. At pick number 2 for the New York Jets. Oops, I guess I hit the chime a little bit twice. Again, just because I'm so eager. With the second pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the New York Jets will select David Bailey, the edge from Texas Tech. Now, look, I know that there's a lot of Arvell Reese talk right now with the Jets. And look, if the Jets took Arvell Reese, I wouldn't be disappointed. I do think that it's going to come down between David Bailey and Arvell Reese. Now, look, Arvell Reese is a player I really love. I love the athleticism. I love the ability he has getting off the ball. But the problem with the Jets is he really needs to develop. Arvell Reese is a player that if you develop him correctly, I think could be a really good pro. The problem is I don't necessarily trust this defensive staff to develop him. And this is a staff, too, that is on the hot seat. And I do think that will be important to take note with how I have this draft spaced out. Because they're on such a hot seat, they're going to need instant production. I think Arvell Reese is a player that his best football will be in 2 or 3 years. Where I look at David Bailey, this is a guy that is incredibly productive now. He knows how to win. And more importantly, as a pass rusher, not a lot of people talk about this. He knows how to finish plays. He can finish his rush. He can finish the plays. A lot of guys can generate pressures. A lot of guys can generate heat. But it takes a special guy to generate that type of pass rush. Incredibly productive. 14.5 sacks. He's got a whole toolbox of different pass rushing ability. And I did love his ability, how he improved against the run this season. I do think he's going to be a natural pass rusher from day one. You do have to build a little bit more of that run style. But I look at this Jets defense and all the moves they make. You look at the defensive line coach they brought in. You brought in the personnel. It looks like they're going to a 3-4. And with that, David Bailey is an outside linebacker in a 3-4. I think he'd be a great fit. I think it'd be a great tandem, having him on one edge, having Will McDonald on the other edge. That could be a very difficult pursuit to stop. And look, Arvell Reese, to me, the best coaches are creative defensive minds. If you had Arvell Reese with a really great defensive schematic, and look, I don't think that Aaron Glenn's great schematically. You need to move Arvell Reese like a chess piece. You need to move him around the field like a Micah Parsons. You need to move him in inside, outside, all around. And I just don't think this staff and this coach is talented enough to do that. And look, with David Bailey, this is a guy that I can project to get double-digit sacks in the National Football League. He's a violent strike-through tackler. He's shown clear improvements in 2025 as a run defender. Honestly, in this draft, you'd love to trade out of 2, but look, you get a guy that's going to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback. And you look at Seattle. Seattle won that Super Bowl and was a great team because they're able to get after the quarterback with a great pass rush and rushing 4. The Jets need to improve this pass rush. And I think Bailey not only is a great long-term pro for them, but can make an immediate impact at pick number 2. So now we move to pick 16. There will be a lot of discussions with this one. So I have the Jets on the clock at pick 16. Who do I think they will select? And look, I'm going to preface this by saying this. This isn't what I would do. This is what I think the Jets will do. And at pick 16, the Jets will select Ty Simpson, the quarterback out of Alabama. And I know a lot of you are going to comment. I know a lot of you are going to hate this pick. But I just look at the tea leaves. This Jets staff has brought in a lot of veterans. Frank Wright. They've brought in a veteran quarterback coach who's been a quarterback coach for 20 years. That's telling me that they are looking at a young quarterback. And when you look at this pool of quarterbacks in the draft, yes, I know people will talk about Drew Aller on day 3. Yes, I understand that people will look at some day 3 projects. But realistically, if Darren Muji and Aaron Glenn want to keep their job, they need to show that they have a young quarterback in the building. And look, I think there's a lot I like about Simpson. Obviously, the regression, obviously only 15 starts in college does concern me. But I just look at this and go, the Jets in a perfect world would love him in the second round. I just get the feeling that since it's such a limited quarterback class, it's just such a thin class, you're going to see someone in the 20s draft Simpson. That he's going to get overdrafted, and it always happens with quarterbacks. And look, I understand that people are going to say, well, why don't you just get a bridge quarterback or a veteran quarterback for the year? Well, here's the thing. What's going to more likely keep Aaron Glenn's job if the team wins 6 games? Well, our defense improved, but we still don't have a plan at quarterback. Or, hey, we sat Ty Simpson the first 8 games. The last 9 games, he was 3-6 or 4-5 as a starter, showing improvement, showing touch on the ball, and that we have our quarterback, and we're going into an incredible draft class in 2027 where we now don't have to draft a quarterback. We have plenty of ammo to really round out this roster and potentially get a bunch of picks if a team wants to come up for a quarterback. So that, to me, is how they're operating. In a perfect world, the Jets don't draft a quarterback with their top 44 picks. They just don't. They move it. They kick it down the road. They take a project on day 3. But unfortunately, I think Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji realize that they're on a hot seat and that they need to at least take a stab at quarterback. And look, in a perfect world, I'd love them to sign like a Malik Willis so you don't have to draft a quarterback. But if you're signing a Kirk Cousins, if you're signing one of these bridge quarterbacks, you need to have a plan in place long-term for the quarterback. So I think Ty Simpson comes in play. Could there be a scenario where they trade back in from 33 to get back up? Potentially. But then that requires more assets to move up. I think the Jets will take their losses here and get their quarterback at 16. Now we move on to pick 33 in the second round, especially they draft Ty Simpson. I think that this will be a very popular pick to move out of. The Jets want to recoup some assets to fill out this roster. And a team I would really keep an eye on moving up to 33 is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Number one, they do not have a first-round pick. And number two, they have a plethora of round 3 picks. They have 3 third-round picks. If the Jets can move back to their pick at 58, recoup a third-rounder so they have an extra third-rounder in this draft and potentially get even a future asset in the really deep 2027 draft, I think they will do that. But in this scenario, let's say that the Jets are on the clock at pick 33. Who do I have them taking at pick 33? I have them taking Peter Woods, the defensive lineman out of Clemson. Look, he's a big dude. He's explosive, 6'3", 310. And like I said with David Bailey, I really think that they are going to move to a 3-4. This is someone that can play inside on the 3-4, can set the edge on the 3-4. He's got a great motor. And again, I do look at the production a little bit of an issue, but I watched the tape. He's able to get upfield. He's able to really have a plus pass rush move. I just think that you look at this defensive line, you have some nice players on there with Harrison Phillips and Juwan Briggs, but this is someone that can really cause havoc in the pass rush. And I'm just thinking about putting him out on the outside, paired next to a Will McDonald or a David Bailey. That is going to be a really difficult matchup. They need athleticism on this defensive line. Could this also be a spot where they look for a playmaker, a pass catcher, potentially in the secondary as well? I really believe, especially for the secondary, the Jets are going to really focus in free agency on the secondary and really try to patch up this back end of the defense through free agency, whether it's the safety position, whether it's the cornerback position. But I do really like Peter Woods here. And finally, pick 44, their final pick in round 2, and our final pick of this mock draft for the New York Jets. The Jets will select at pick 44. They will get a pass catcher. They will get Malachi Fields from Notre Dame. Look, I think Malachi Fields here is incredible value, and it's a great fit. 6'4", 222, big athletic target. Reminds me of that Michael Pittman Jr. mold. Now, again, more build-up speed than actual go-get-it, actually stretch the field, but can go up and get it in the air. Really good in the red zone. You want to see him work on that route proficiency, but great reflexes, great radius in terms of catching the football. I thought he had a really great Senior Bowl. And again, I think he'd be a really great complement to this offense where you put him on the outside. You can have Garrett work and attack more in the middle of the field. You have him and A.D. Mitchell on the outside, maybe move Mechie into the middle. And all of a sudden, you look at the weapons on this offensive line, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Malachi Fields, A.D. Mitchell, Mason Taylor in year 2. All of a sudden, you look at this offense, which has for so long been devoid of weapons, actually has some very intriguing pieces. So those are our picks. Again, let me know in the comments what you think, who you would like the Jets to target in this scenario. But again, comments, super chat, jump to the front of the line. But again, quick recap. At pick 2, I have the Jets taking David Bailey. At pick 16, I have them taking Ty Simpson. At pick 33, Peter Woods. And at pick 44, Malachi Fields. And look, I do think if they draft Simpson, they're going to move out of 33. Like, this is a scenario I really believe. Because, again, 33 is the most traded pick in the NFL draft, and there's a lot of reasons for it. The big reason now, especially with the way the draft is structured now, where you have round 1, night 1, round 2 is going to be rounds 2 and 3. You have the chance to come back, have a full day, get into your war rooms, and sit there and go, wow, we have a top 15 player grade on this player sitting at the top of this draft. I don't know how he fell here, but we need to go get him. Let's get the Jets on the phone. And again, you get a lot of competition for that pick. And I do think that will be a popular pick, especially the Jets go Ty Simpson. They'll try to recoup an asset. I believe what they'll try to do, and why I think Jacksonville's a really popular place. Again, they have 3 third-round picks. I could see Jacksonville saying, look, we didn't have a first-round pick. We have 1 or 2 first-round grades on these guys. Let's go up there and get a piece that we can put around Trevor Lawrence. Maybe it's an offensive lineman. Let's go and get a piece for this defense. So I think that will be a popular, really, especially if they get Simpson. Now, again, in a perfect world, if you were to ask me, should the Jets draft a quarterback in the top 44, I would say absolutely not. I don't think they should. I don't think they should draft Ty Simpson. But again, part of this exercise is looking at the situation. And I look at the situation. I look at the staff that they built. They brought a lot of veteran quarterback coaching, guys that have played the position. And to me, that signals that they're going to take a young quarterback. And a flyer on Drew Aller, a flyer on some of these day 3 picks, even Garrett Nussmeier. Like, Garrett Nussmeier, to me, his high end is he's a really, really good backup in this league, or a really low-end starter. And that's where it is. It doesn't make sense for the Jets to burn a draft pick on him unless he's sitting there on day 3. And if this staff tries to go to Woody at the end of the season, well, we got Garrett Nussmeier, looks like a good backup quarterback. Still, it's like, well, they still have to go find the quarterback next year. I just get the feeling that they're going to look at Ty Simpson. I think he's going to rise up the boards because he's going to be a really good talker. He's really smart. His dad has been a coach for 20 years. He's going to be able to read the defenses. He's going to be able to show us tape about working in those muddy pockets. And look, 15 college starts does concern me. You look at the history that hasn't boded well for any quarterback. But again, the Jets are going to look at this and say a bird in the hand's worth 2 in the bush in this situation. Because, yeah, in a perfect world, we love to pick our quarterback in 2027. But if this team finishes with 5 wins and this offense looks out of sync, if this offense isn't scoring points and it's ugly like last year, is Aaron Glenn going to get an opportunity? Is Darren Muji going to get an opportunity? And I just look across town. If you hit on the quarterback, if you find the quarterback, it saves your job. Like, look at Jackson Dart with the Giants. I don't think Joe Schoen, and I've been on the record, I don't think he's been a good GM. I don't think his drafts have been anything special, but he quote-unquote found Jackson Dart. And again, we've seen the videos of, we know who really wanted Jackson Dart, but he can go to ownership and say, look, I found your quarterback. Joe Douglas had an unbelievable 2022 draft, had all these great picks, but the reason he got fired was because he moved off of Sam Darnold and he drafted Zach Wilson. You look at time and time again, you pick the wrong quarterback, it doesn't work out. Look at Minnesota. Minnesota, people have lost their jobs because they let Sam Darnold walk out of that building. And look at how it's been. And look, I think that the Jets in these first 44 picks, excluding quarterback, they're going to walk out of this with a dynamic offensive player, probably a pass catcher. I think at least 2 to 3 really good defensive players. One's definitely going to be a pass rusher. I do think they'll address the defensive line. And it's also intriguing too with this schematic change. Like, are they going to look to move a Will McDonald? Are they going to look to move a Jermaine Johnson? And look, I think you're selling those guys for 75 cents on the dollar right now, but these are all possibilities with this team. And look, 33, you're going to get a really good player. You see it every year, especially defensively. This is such an offensive-driven league that you see it probably 20 of the 32 picks are going to be offense, maybe even higher. So you're going to get a really good defensive player at 33. That's why I have Peter Woods there again. I think there's some chance that maybe one of the good defensive tackles from Ohio State falls to 33. And look, with this wide receiver class too, it's a good class. Now, again, we know about the top 3. And I do see a scenario where maybe 2 of them are available at 16. I could see a scenario where none of them are available at 16, but there's still some good receivers. I think Malachi Fields is a perfect example. Do I think Malachi Fields is going to be a team's number 1 receiver? Probably not. But do I think he could be a really good, reliable number 2 for a long time in this league? A good possession, a good chain mover, a good guy in the red zone to target? Yeah, I think he has a really good role in that in his future. And I do think that is something to keep an eye on. And 4 teams that I also would make a note of. These teams do not have a first-round pick. What if they get interested with 33? Falcons don't have a first-round pick. Packers don't have a first-round pick. Jags, as I mentioned, don't have one. And interestingly enough, I don't think this will happen because of how it worked out before. The Colts don't have a first-round pick. Now, again, I don't think the Colts are going to come up to 33, although weirder things have happened. And part of the reason I look at this mock draft, like I look at production. And Arvell Reese and David Bailey, I think it's going to come down to those 2. And I know we've had guys like Drones, who's been a big part of the channel, a big watcher, has mentioned Ruben Bain. I think that with the defensive scheme that the Jets want to run, Ruben Bain is not going to be a great fit. And I think it's going to come down to Arvell Reese and David Bailey. And look, I think both are going to be very good pros. The problem with Arvell Reese is this. Arvell Reese, you look at the production. The sack production isn't there. He's a bit of a smaller linebacker. And the thing with picking him at 2 is if I had seen in the first year or throughout Aaron Glenn's tenure, like this was a really good game planner. Like Aaron Glenn was a really good tactician. He was really good at coming up with creative schemes, creative blitz packaging. Then I'd be more inclined to take Arvell Reese. But when you look at Aaron Glenn, his supposed strength is building a staff, which is funny because the first staff didn't work. And really about motivation. He's not necessarily a tactician. And because of that, he needs to win off of talent. And I'm not saying Arvell Reese isn't talented. He is. But when I look at who is the most polished pass rusher in this draft, who, if you were to say, who's going to come in, make an immediate impact, and just be a really damn good pass rusher for a long time, it's David Bailey. He's gotten better every year, 14 and a half sacks. I mean, you look at a lot of these guys in this draft, and a lot of guys we'll talk about is, well, they need to develop their finish. They need to work on finishing, getting to the quarterback, or polishing their move sets, or polishing or developing a swim move or another move. And David Bailey has a full toolbox of moves. He can creatively get to the quarterback. He is a really good strider. He's got that great stride length, and he's really good at getting to the quarterback. And yeah, he needs to work on some of his secondary moves, but this is a guy, like, especially you put him in a 3-4 outside linebacker, he can run through a tackler, he can get off the edge and really make havoc. Like, this is a guy, like, if you were to tell me he could be a 9-10 sack guy as a rookie, I could easily see it. And I just feel like when we look at number 2, you want to get the guy that's not only going to have a great ceiling, but who's going to be incredibly productive. And I just look at Arvell Reese and Ruben Bain. I think they're going to be really good pros. But for me, Reese is probably going to be a guy who will be better years 2, 3, and 4 than year 1. The Jets can't rely on that. And the other one, too, is I look at Ruben Bain. I think Ruben Bain is going to be an interesting player, depending on where he's drafted. If he's drafted outside the top 5, I think a lot of teams will be happy with him. But I do think there's going to be some fan bases. Like, I think Ruben Bain is going to be an 8 to 10 sack guy a year. I think he's going to be a really good defensive end. He can kick inside to D tackle. I think he's going to be a really good player. But if you pick him with the 3rd or 4th pick, I think some people are going to come away a little bit disappointed with it because they're going to say, well, in the top 5, we want someone that's going to be like an all-pro or a Pro Bowler every year. And Ruben Bain's a really good player. He makes our defense better, but is he the guy that moves the needle? I think that's going to be something very interesting. And I always say that's such an important thing about the draft is where you're drafted and the expectations. Like my favorite example for the draft would be Robert Gallery. So if you remember when Robert Gallery was drafted by the Raiders with what was it, the 2nd or 3rd pick in the draft, to be a left tackle, he didn't work as left tackle. May say, oh, he's one of the biggest busts in NFL history. But then you look at his career. He made the move to guard, and he was a really good guard for a long time for the Raiders. And it's one of those things like if you were to say, hey, you took this guy at 15 and he was a guard and he was there for 10 seasons, was really good at his job, you're like, you know what? That's a really good draft pick. The hard part is when you're drafted that high, there's so much expectations. And I'm not sure if Ruben Bain would live up to those expectations at 2. And once again, when we talk about the quarterback, I think the Jets are going to be forced to draft the quarterback. Again, comment, super chat, jump to the front of the line. Again, Chris, thank you for the support. Hit that like and subscribe button as well. And when I look at it, I just get the sense that the Jets are going to take a quarterback. And in my scenario, I think they're just going to bite the bullet at 16, take Ty Simpson. Now, again, I personally wouldn't do that, but I think we're going to get to a point where the Jets sign, let's say, a Kirk Cousins or a veteran quarterback, and they're looking at the draft board and they're going, well, Garrett Nussmeier at best is a high-end backup quarterback. We don't love Drew Aller's accuracy. We like really the only legitimate quarterback that we view as potentially being a starting quarterback this league is Ty Simpson. And because it's such a thin draft class, like you look at this draft, like, and especially after pick 16, there isn't a lot of difference in terms of the talent. It's a lot of basically picking your flavors of what prospects. It reminds me a lot of the Will McDonald draft. We're really after that pick. And again, people were like, I can't believe they drafted Will McDonald that high, but there really wasn't a major separator between prospects. It really just came down to who you preferred, who you think will be a better fit. And I keep running these scenarios too, where, I mean, it's not likely, but here's a couple things to throw out there. I mean, I look at 18. 18 is the Vikings. If they don't love their quarterback situation, and maybe they look at Ty Simpson and they view him higher than J.J. McCarthy, which is, again, what the Jets did with Zach Wilson, Sam Darnold. Again, it didn't work out for the Jets. Pittsburgh has not had a franchise quarterback. And maybe Mike McCarthy looks at it and goes, yeah, I can have him sit behind Aaron or a veteran for a year. I look at Philadelphia 23. Now, I don't think Philadelphia is ready to move on from Jalen Hurts, but they have a really good roster. They don't have a lot of holes. Then I keep going down the list. I look at 29 with the Rams. How much more football does Matthew Stafford have left in him? I sit and look at even Houston at 28. Houston's a really damn good roster. Do they love C.J. Stroud and do they want to give him an extension? And that doesn't include the teams in round 2 that could maybe come up. Like maybe Arizona's sitting there in round 2 saying, look, we have the bridge in Jacoby Brissett. We can't really afford to pay a quarterback because of the Kyler Murray contract. Maybe they come back into round 1. Maybe Cleveland comes back into round 1. Like Cleveland also, it doesn't seem like, what if Tom Bunkin says, look, I love Ty Simpson. We picked a great player with number 6. We have pick 24. We have a bunch of draft picks. I'm going to take him at 24. I mean, there's so many different scenarios where the Jets are just going to say the water is so muddy behind us after pick 16 that we have to bite the bullet. We have to bite the bullet. Yeah, I do think it's going to be a very talented division. Again, hopefully Joe Burrow's healthy. Lamar Jackson, hopefully he can return to form. I mean, outside of Cleveland, I guess, Ben. So, again, comment, super chat to jump to the front of the line. But, look, I just get the feeling that the Jets are going to say, look, we love Ty Simpson. In a perfect world, we'd love him to get to 33. And, again, I wouldn't also rule out that the Jets don't even get to pick Simpson at 16. we've seen it before. If a team really loves Ty Simpson and falls in love with him and knows the Jets could be in play at 16, who's to say a team doesn't jump the Jets at 15 to get him? I mean, there's so many different scenarios in this draft. And look, I just look at this staff. They wanted a more professional staff. They wanted guys with a lot of experience on offense. And the easy answer is, well, yeah, because the Jets have not had experience on that side of the ball. The offense has not performed well. And yes, that is a good argument. But my counter to that is also, why would they want so much experience? It's not to have that experience to, quote, bring in Kirk Cousins. It's not just to have that experience just to run a full season with him. I really believe that the reason is they're going to take a shot at the quarterback. And the question is, how do they attack it? Do they look to attack it after the 44th pick and take a flyer on it? Like we brought up Drew Aller, on Garrett Nussmeier. Do they just say, look, we think Ty Simpson's the best quarterback potentially in this draft outside of obviously Mendoza? We need to take a shot because if we don't have a quarterback and we don't have any reason for the people to be interested in this team, I mean, what's going to be more interesting for Jet fans? Jet fans are going to be more intrigued and more interested in this season in Ty Simpson playing in the second half of the season than basically what we saw last year, which was, Brady Cook in a full tank with horrible defense. Like, that's why you want Jet fans to care. And look, I want the Jets to be good, let's be frank. But you also understand that the Jets need to get this fan base back. Like, this fan base is at its lowest point that I've ever seen. And look, there's going to be people, if they pick Ty Simpson, that are going to love the pick. There's going to be plenty of Jet fans that are going to despise that pick and say, why aren't we waiting till next year? And I get both sides of it. But I just think that this staff understands, look, we need to somehow keep our jobs. And that's not the best place to be operating from, but that's the problem. When they went into last season and decided to trade all these pieces, to trade at the deadline, to basically say we need a full-on rebuild, well, you burned a lot of goodwill with this fan base, and a lot of it in this ownership, and a lot of it was how the season finished. If the Jets finished this season looking like they did in the middle of the season, where, they were scrappy, they were a bit punchy, you knew they were outmanned, but at least they were in football games, where the last 5 games, it wasn't just competitive, it was historically inept. And this fan base, and I get it, they're broken, they're upset, they're pissed. I get it. Again, comment, super chat, jump to the front of the line. And look, I do think that they've made it clear. I think they're going to go to a 3-4. I think the pieces like David Bailey and Peter Woods fits that 3-4. And I do think they're going to draft a receiver, but I wouldn't rule out 44 in the second round to get the receiver. I know a lot of people want Mekhi Lemon, F16. I don't know if he gets there. Carnell Tate, I don't know if he gets there. And even Jordan Tyson was there at 16. I love the talent. Like, look, I think Jordan Tyson, when he's healthy, is the best receiver in the draft. But when I just look at the medicals, and even they come back clean, I just look at the history. Every year he's had some hit injury. And the Jets right now, they not only need just good football, they need consistency. They need football players that are going to be out there. And, Jordan Tyson, I know you can talk yourself into him, especially if he's there at 16, but I also don't want a scenario where, Jordan Tyson goes out there week 1, week 2, has 100 yards in each game and has a touchdown. Oh my God, we have the next big receiver. And then week 3, he has a hamstring injury out 5 weeks. Then you wait the 5 weeks, he comes back. Wow, he has another great game. And then, now he's got another injury. Like you can't rely on that. And again, you want guys, especially where this team's right now, that just consistently show up and make a big impact. But that is our first mock draft of many. Again, we'll do full 7-rounders coming up, especially after free agency when we get a clear picture of the roster. I'll have more scenarios and especially a lot of trade-ups because I do think 33 is going to be a pick that the Jets, if you ask me today, I don't think they're picking at 33. I really believe they're going to trade back to get more assets. But look, this is just the beginning. Lots more mock draft talk, lots more Jets free agency coverage coming in the coming days. Again, make sure you like and subscribe to miss any of our latest videos. But until next time, I'm your host, Nolan Rich, and this has been